2025, a year that changed India's place in space forever. Aboard the International Space Station, two flags floated together, India's tricolor and America's stars and stripes. For the first time in history, an Indian astronaut lived and worked on the ISS, part of a joint US-India mission. The world watched. Social media exploded, and something bigger began to take shape. How did India reach this milestone? And what does it mean for the future of global space cooperation? Let's go back to where it all began inside one of the most transformative years in India-US relations. This is the story of how 2025 redefined space diplomacy, science, and India's global rise. Welcome to India's first astronaut on the ISS, how 2025 redefined India-US space relations. In June 2025, Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla launched into low Earth orbit aboard a NASA Axiom capsule. He was the first Indian citizen ever to live and work aboard the International Space Station. It wasn't just a national first, it was a milestone in human collaboration beyond borders. Shukla spent over 3 weeks aboard the ISS with American, European, and Japanese astronauts. Together, they conducted high-level research, ran joint experiments, and symbolized democratic cooperation in space. What made this moment even more powerful was the timing. 2025 had already become a landmark year for India-US strategic partnership. From climate to defense to emerging tech, both nations were aligning like never before. And in space, perhaps the most inspiring frontier, that alignment reached new heights. This wasn't just about sending one astronaut into space. It was the beginning of something far larger, a shared vision for the future of humanity in orbit. So how did this space partnership take shape? It began with trust and was formalized through the NASA ISRO Axiom Alliance. A unique public-private collaboration, this mission brought India into NASA's crewed spaceflight framework. Shubhanshu Shukla trained alongside NASA astronauts in Houston's Johnson Space Center. From survival simulations to microgravity practice, India's presence became part of America's space routine. The mission was also part of India's growing involvement in the Artemis Accords, a set of principles guiding responsible space exploration. For India, this was not just about science. It was about status, equality, and representation in space governance. And for the U.S., it was a strategic embrace of a rising democratic ally in the global south. This alliance also birthed NISAR, the world's most advanced Earth observation satellite. Built jointly by NASA and ISRO, NISAR launched earlier in 2025 to monitor climate change, earthquakes, and agriculture. Its data is now being used by over 50 nations to plan disaster responses and environmental strategies. India brought cutting-edge radar tech. The U.S. provided deep space infrastructure. Together, they delivered global impact. It's a perfect example of how this partnership is shaping not just nations, but the planet itself. Let's talk about the technology and what comes next. The ISS mission gave India hands-on experience in international crewed space operations. This knowledge is now feeding directly into India's Gaganyaan human spaceflight program. India also announced a possible contribution to NASA's future Lunar Gateway Station. A joint robotic mission to the moon is reportedly in early development stages. And then there's the Indus Innovation Bridge, new bilateral framework to connect startups and labs in AI, aerospace, and biotech. Under this program, Indian and American universities are co-developing next-gen space robotics. ISRO and NASA scientists are co-designing satellite data AI models to help farmers manage crop yields. And commercial space ventures are getting easier cross-border access to launch pads and investors. Simply put, the US and India are now just partners but co-pilots in the next phase of human space exploration. Why does all this matter beyond the headlines? Because it's not just astronauts and rockets. It's about the ripple effect on our daily lives. Space collaboration improves Earth-based systems, weather forecasting, climate monitoring, GPS accuracy, and disaster prediction. Farmers in Tamil Nadu can soon use NISAR data to predict rainfall and optimize irrigation. Disaster agencies in Uttarakhand can receive early landslide alerts based on orbital topography analysis. Telecom companies in India are using joint satellite tech to connect remote villages. Even digital education and telemedicine in rural India are benefiting from this space-driven connectivity. This is how space diplomacy becomes economic upliftment and everyday innovation. Let's not forget the human angle. Shubhanshu Shukla's time on the ISS captured India's imagination like few events ever have. His video calls with students were broadcast live in over 500 schools. His space diary entries became viral Instagram posts, sparking dreams across the nation. Children who once said, "I want to be a cricketer," now say, "I want to be an astronaut." Shukla carried small tokens from India, a miniature Bhagavad Gita, a photo of his family, and a digital letter from the Prime Minister. His spacewalk was watched by millions live, with cheers echoing from Mumbai to Boston. This wasn't just a space mission. It was a cultural moment that blended science, patriotism, and aspiration. Politically, the impact is just as powerful. 2025 saw the signing of the Trust Initiative, transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technology. It deepened bilateral coordination in critical areas like defense tech, semiconductors, quantum computing, and of course space. India is now part of exclusive American-led research groups on planetary defense and space traffic management. The U.S. also committed to supporting India's future Mars mission with navigation and communication support. Both countries agreed to share training modules for future astronauts and scientists. And perhaps most importantly, they're jointly advocating for ethical, transparent space governance at the United Nations. Space, once a Cold War battlefield, is now a canvas for democratic collaboration. So what happens next? India is preparing for its first independent crewed mission in late 2026. There's talk of a joint lunar rover project using shared ISRO NISAR components. Indian space startups like Skyroot, Agnico, and Bellatrix are now raising funds from Silicon Valley investors. Educational institutions in both countries are opening new Indo-US space programs. And space is becoming a recurring theme in diplomacy like during the G20, Quad, and BRICS Plus summits. India is no longer a junior partner. It is a driver of global space strategy. To sum it up, 2025 was a turning point, not just for Indian spaceflight, but for global perceptions of India's capabilities. One astronaut aboard the ISS represented a billion dreams and decades of scientific grit. The US-India Space Partnership is now a pillar of international collaboration in the 21st century. As humanity sets its sights on the moon, Mars, and beyond, India is not watching from the sidelines. It's suited up, on board, and reaching for the stars. So what do you think? Has India truly arrived as a global space power? Do you believe this partnership will shape the future of science and humanity? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're inspired, check out our other videos. The space race is no longer a race, it's a partnership. And it's only just begun.